When we read, when we contemplate on what we read, when we watch, these days we're very lucky, when we watch videos and we watch DVDs, and we attend Dharma talks, and we go for pujas to collect merit, and then we apply what we have learned, and we talk to senior Dharma students. Again, let me tell you very clearly, senior means practice. Senior means practice. Even in the monasteries, a senior practitioner is just not a monk who's older, it's one who's very practiced. A senior practitioner is one that's very, very practiced, and the mind does not revert back. Why doesn't the mind revert back? Because it's been hypnotized? It's been brainwashed? No. Once you become a doctor, and you know that you've cut your leg, and you're going to put antibiotic cream on it, antiseptic cream, you know it's good. You don't go back to putting saliva and dirt or primitive methods in there. So when you're a doctor and you cut yourself, you don't go back to putting dirt or saliva. Some people put saliva in the cuts to heal it. It doesn't mean you've been brainwashed. It means you got a higher knowledge. So if you become a doctor and there's antiseptic cream available when you cut yourself, and you don't apply the antiseptic cream and you use some jungle kind of method, which that's all they have available, then you're going backward. So when you learn Dharma, and you start applying Dharma methods, it's not that you're going backward. It's not that you are going forward. It's not that you have been hypnotized or brainwashed. It's that you've learned a better method. If you know a better method, and you go backwards to another method, and you can justify and validate it with any reason you like, what happens is this, is the reasons may be something you use because you can't face yourself. And everybody around you who can see through it will be kind to you, but people who cannot see through it, they'll also be kind to you. But my point is this, is it doesn't matter whether people, it doesn't matter what to justify, or to cover, or to say anything, or to validate, because in the end, the karma will still come back to you. And that's the important point we need to realize. When we justify and validate something that's not correct, and we just want to look good, and we want people not to look down on us, that's all right. We might win in that. We might be able to convince a few people. But I want you to realize this is, but the karma, you cannot change. The law of karma is very stable. So that's very important. We often have, when there's misunderstanding or there's something wrong, we often have a lot of meetings, we talk, and people like to validate, they like to justify, they like to ask people, didn't I say that? Didn't I mean that? Didn't I tell you that already? Aren't I right? They like to say that. And then a lot of people, especially in the East, in the meeting, they like to say, yeah, you said that, but behind they'll gossip about the person. But my point is, whether behind we gossip or in front we analyze and we understand or we see through it or not, it doesn't make a difference, because karma is unchanging. Karma. So ultimately, the judge of what we do and not do shouldn't be people's scorn or what people think of us or the opinions and whether we look good or not. What's important is, will this action ripen into more negative karma? That's what we need to think. So Western individualism helps in that, but also it can go a step too far, as we read in this book. So my point is, ultimately, if we really apply our practice, we don't need to worry what people think of us. And the ultimate point I'm trying to make is, the doubts we have about our practice, the doubts we have about our lineage, the doubts we have about our center, the doubts we have about our teacher, the doubts we have about our actual meditations and yidams, all that is just a reflection of ourselves. Is a reflection of ourselves. How to eliminate that doubt? Doubt that is healthy, that brings you to the next level, is different than doubt that drags you down. Doubt by a person who talks in such a way that because you don't have enough knowledge and they drag you down is very scary. Why? Once they've dragged you down, they're gone, but you suffer. That's one. Number two, doubt that comes from lack of knowledge is even more scary. Because doubt that comes from another person is pretty much dependent on whether that person is around or not. If that person's gone, whatever they said takes less and less effect for most of us. But doubt that comes from lack of knowledge is very, very scary, because we can only think within our small box. We can only think within our small parameters. And we can only judge and know and understand within our small parameters. And that's very scary. Why? That's why we say, now, that's why, I'm sorry, here you say, oh, he's so kampong, or she's so kampong. What does it mean? They're very narrow-minded. They're not exposed. They don't see. So they make themselves suffer. They make the people around them suffer. Not because they're bad. Really not because they're bad. I'm not being diplomatic. Because they think on a very narrow level. And they have very little exposure. So doubt that comes from narrowness or lack of knowledge is the most dangerous. Is the most dangerous. On an ultimate level, in terms of emptiness, and seeing everything as independently existent and permanent, is very powerful doubt. And then on a gross level, to judge, to see, to function, to live, and to keep feeding our fears and ignorance through lack of knowledge is very, very dangerous. That's why one of the reasons I put in the book club, and I'm glad people attend, I'm really, really happy. I'm really happy for all of you, because you're not doing the center a favor, you're not doing me a favor, you're doing yourself a favor. We all get together, we fight traffic, and we make the time we come here. And when we come here, all the anger and all the unhappiness and all the doubts and everything that's happening, we should keep it out the door. We should come in with an open mind. And I'll tell you why. The next 2-3 hours is for you to get information. So if your mind's cluttered and filled with anger and filled with doubts and filled with your problems, and all of us have problems, some of us very big problems, then the information cannot go in. Then you don't help yourself. You don't help yourselves at all. Why don't you help yourself? Because you come in with anger, you come in with doubt, you come in with this space filled with this kind of thinking about everything else but knowledge that can help us. When you leave, you come in exactly the same. Then how can this experience be spiritual? How can it be spiritual? It can't be spiritual. Why? You came in with a state of mind, you leave with a state of mind. It can't be spiritual. So therefore, in the monasteries, we do a series of chantings to invoke different types of energies in order to dispel this. But then the monasteries are there 24/7, and the monks are there 24/7. So for them, there's no next appointment, and there's no prior appointment. So it's easier. That's why I say teaching in a non-monastic environment is much more challenging. It's much more complicated and much more difficult, because you have to deal with people who are completely not committed to the Dharma, and who can give up the Dharma anytime when things don't go their way. But it's very rare in the monastery. I've never heard of one monk ever saying, hey, I'm not going to practice anymore. I've heard a monk saying, oh, I'm not going to be a monk anymore. I'm going to disrobe and go get married or whatever. But I'm going to, I disrobe my monkhood, but I didn't disrobe my faith. I've never heard of any monk saying that. Not even Western monks. But I've heard of lay people saying, hey, I'm not going to practice anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I don't see it as bad. What I see is, how to counter them, how to help them, how to counter them that they don't go the wrong way. And what I came up with is knowledge. So what happens is, when we have our book club, and we have our cell groups, and we have our pujas, and we have our Dharma teachings, and we have our CDs, and we have our books, and we have a great, great department, KMP, because KMP is going to play a pivotal role in this and in the future. Pivotal. And everybody involved in KMP, now they'll say, oh my God, there's so many of us riding on the back of a small ladybug or a little beetle, and I don't think I can balance. But later, this beetle is going to grow into an elephant, and it's going to support a lot of people. And all these people who are around in KMP and everybody who is involved say, oh my God, I am so glad that I made this happen. Because all these other publishing companies were very small when they first started, if you read. And it took them 20, 30 years. So therefore, what's important is our commitment. And so what happens is when we have class, it isn't just showing up. It isn't just sitting here. It's actually reading the material. It's actually discussing the material. And it's actually reading and discussing the material and seeing how it applies to us. So if we read and discuss the material and see how it can apply to us, what happens is you'll see your mind transform. But if we're not focused here, we're not focused there, we're not focused with this or that, we're not focused anywhere, what happens is superficial and superstitious Dharma knowledge we gain, but not the real Dharma knowledge. So at the end of the day, you know what yidams are for what, you know what the throne is for, you know what this mantra is for, you know what this puja is for, you know how a Rinpoche sits, you know what a Rinpoche is, but those are all very superficial knowledge. And superficial, outer, appearance, procedural knowledge. But you don't actually have Dharma knowledge. Why don't you have Dharma knowledge? Is because there's a difference with superficial knowledge that's just superstitious. You know, oh, if you have spirits, you do Singdoma's practice. Oh, you know, if you have spirits, you take refuge. Oh, you don't break your vows. Oh, you should, you know, Tok is a blessing. Those are all just superficial knowledge. And do we want to degrade ourselves by only gaining superficial knowledge in the Dharma? That is very important. How do we know that we're filled with superficial knowledge? How do we know? You test yourself out. Let me give you a measuring stick. This is not criticism. This is not for us to, another method to put myself down, because we have plenty of methods to do that. We don't need other people to help us. But this is really a measuring stick. How do you know that your Dharma practice, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 8 year, 30 years, 40 years, 5 months, 6 months, is not superficial or superstitious knowledge? Let me tell you how. Your motivation. Is it still for money? Are you still going to pujas and doing mantras for money? Are you still going to see your gurus to find a quick fix method for your problems? Are you still having expectation that your guru or the yidams or the Dharma protectors will take away all your difficulties? You check your motivation first. If your motivation has improved and you're not going to the lamas and the yidams and the centers and the lineages and the practices and the mantras and the pujas for money or relationship, and you're not praying for that anymore, you can see that your practice is going deeper. Then you have to check yourself. Is your doubts becoming less? And how do you check if your doubts become less? How? Is that when someone says something to you, do you become destabilized? If someone says something to you and you become destabilized very quickly, then you know that your practice has been superficial. That's how you check. You see, you can't have the guru check. You have gurus that are clairvoyant and very high that can look into your mind and say, it's like that. You even have Dharma protectors that can take trance and look at you and say, it's like that. And then you have ordinary teachers who can't do anything, that can see into your mind, but they only teach you the Dharma. But ultimately, whether your teacher's a Buddha, whether your teacher's attained, or whether you're in front of an oracle with a protector coming, or you're in front of an ordinary teacher, they all teach you the same thing. So when they teach you the same thing and you apply it, you use yourself to check yourself. So ultimately, in the monasteries, we don't chase after a teacher for rank. We don't chase after the teacher for lineage or how many incarnations. We don't chase after the teacher whether they sit on a big throne or they have a lot of students. Not. We go after the teacher that we feel comfortable with, because in the monastery you have hundreds of teachers, hundreds of qualified teachers. You possibly cannot take all of them as your teacher. So we check in our heart. And that's what's very important. So the meter stick of knowing whether our Dharma practice is superficial or gaining just procedural knowledge. Check the stability of our mind. When someone says something to us, do we become destabilized very quickly? And this destabilization leads to more doubt, and the doubt eats at us, and then it eats at everything. It eats away at how much time we've spent, how much prayers we've done, the love that our teacher's shown us, the attention, and everything that we've spent time with. Does it eat away at that so quickly? If it eats away at that so quickly, then you know that your Dharma practice and your Dharma knowledge has been superficial, procedural, and It's not getting you anywhere. So then you say, oh, well, Dharma is not getting me anywhere. This protector is not helping me. This Lama is not helping me. This procedure is not helping me. This puja is not helping me. I'm going to look for another one. Or I'm not going to do it anymore. Or I'm going to not be involved. But what I want to say to that is, you have to take the teachings and use that as a meter stick in yourself. And how do you do that? It's not how much knowledge you have. It's not how much knowledge. It's not how many books you have. It's not whether you can quote from a book or not. You will not stop yourself from going to the 3 lower realms here and in the afterlife from having book knowledge and quoting from books and having a lot of books. It will not help you. You can be the biggest scholar here. It won't help you at all. It won't help you, and I'm not being dramatic. Why? It's as good as the books on the shelf, your knowledge, if it doesn't transform you. So having a lot of books on the shelf, same as having a lot of knowledge as having a lot of books on the shelf. How does it help you? Then we have to check. When someone talks to us, do we become destabilized very quickly and we create doubt? If a lot of doubt has been coming, then we have to go deeper and say, my approach has been wrong. Is my mind still very narrow? What does narrow mean? Narrow means I only have a fixed view that is only a certain way of looking at different things that's going on. And that's what's creating the problem for me. When I have a fixed view, it comes from 2 sources, either fear or arrogance. When I have a very narrow fixed view, it comes from fear because I'm afraid to be wrong. I'm afraid to take a chance. I'm basically a scared person. I don't have confidence in myself. I don't have enough knowledge. I don't have enough experience, so that if I say I'm wrong, I'm very scared. And so therefore, it stops us from becoming better. The other one is arrogance, is thinking that I know more, I know the best. No one knows better than me. This type of arrogance is very dangerous. Why? Confidence and arrogance is different. Confidence is open for questioning. Arrogance is not open for questioning. A confident person, when you ask them something, they're very happy to answer you. In fact, they invite it. An arrogant person, they don't want you to ask them questions. They don't want you to question them, and they don't want to be seen as wrong. Therefore, they protect themselves by anger, a black face, avoiding, or not talking about the subject that they're sensitive about. And that's a person that's very arrogant. But that arrogance, again, leads back from fear, lack of confidence. They didn't study enough. They're not exposed. They don't know enough. They know that. But they don't want you to know that, so they act like they know, but actually they don't know. It comes from fear. And that fear comes from what? Is not having enough knowledge, in this case. In this case. So what we're dealing with here is something very, very deep. Why is it very deep? Because it's not something we can see with our eyes. It's not something that's clearly visible. So we have the book club, but let's take example of the book club. But before we come for the book club, we should read. We should really take our time and read. If we read and we follow, and then we join together and we discuss, I promise you, as time goes on, your depressions will become less. Your fears will become less. And things you were not able to do before, that you found totally impossible, you will be able to do. And on top of that, if you really apply, example, when we read the books, it's a very slow procedure. Maybe it's 4 chapters per month. But look, that's 12 months. That's already 48 chapters. That's 2-3 books already. That's more than what we would have done if we were on our own. Most likely. Most likely. It's more than what we would have done if we were on our own. So what happens is when we read and we get together and study, and we get together and do this, you will see your knowledge increase. When your knowledge increases, doubt will become less. You will see your motivation change naturally. And when your motivation changes, the way you react with other people will change. When you react with other people the way it changes, less fear talking, less lack of confidence talking, less the fear of being wrong talking, whatever you do will bring joy to others. Otherwise, you live in fear all the time of being discovered, of being found out, or not wanting to be wrong. Do you want to live the rest of your life not wanting to be wrong, or fear of knowing more, thinking that what you know can be not enough? I don't want to live like that. So what happens is, when we gain more knowledge, your spiritual practice will improve. When your spiritual practice improves, your mind becomes light. When your mind becomes light, many things that happen to us on a daily level, we can handle and overcome. And that's the secret of religion, is to be able to handle the daily barrage of problems, physical, inner, outer, created by others, created by ourselves, created together with others, can be overcome. So therefore, that's the purpose of spiritual practice.